Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Game Master and welcome to my channel. Today I'm talking about the Super Nintendo Mini Classic Edition that Nintendo just announced coming out in September. It's similar to the NES Mini Classic Edition. It will have 20 classic games plus one never been released game, which has me super excited for it. So let's take a look at the games on this console and just take a look what I've seen in the pictures itself and my thoughts in reaction to this. And then I'm going to get a little bit negative towards Nintendo because if Nintendo botches this like the NES Classic Edition, it will really piss longtime gamers like me off in a way I don't think Nintendo is prepared for. But let's take a look at the games first. Contra 3 The Alien Wars by Konami, an excellent game, a really superb follow-up to the original Contra. Donkey Kong Country, not as solid a game as some of the other games on this list, but a pretty good platformer. Earthbound, it's an RPG I haven't played yet, but I have downloaded on the Wii U Virtual Console, one I look forward to. Final Fantasy III, which is also Final Fantasy VI, a really good RPG. This will probably be the Super Nintendo dub. Don't expect as solid a dub as in some other ports, but still a good game. I have played the PlayStation port, but not the Super Nintendo port. Still looking forward to it. F-Zero, a decent racing game. It hasn't aged well, but it's decent. Kirby Superstar, I do believe that's the one that has a whole bunch of mini games in it. Tell me if I'm wrong. Kirby's Dream Course, I think, is a weird golf game. I haven't played that one, so I can't tell you. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, a really superb adventure game. My first Zelda game I've ever played, and it's one of my favorites. Definitely get that one if you have any of the Nintendo virtual systems that support a virtual console. That one's worth picking up if you've never played it before. Mega Man X, a really great platformer. Secret of Mana, I haven't played that one yet. A lot of people tell me it's a great RPG. Unfortunately, the Mana game I have played, which is called Sword of Mana, sucked. So I'm kind of a little nervous about playing that one because it seemed like a really crappy Zelda clone. If anyone's played Secret of Mana and want to tell me it's a good game and convince me to get it, I'm open to it. Star Fox. Now this one hasn't released on any of Nintendo's virtual consoles yet. And I know quite a few people who have told me they wanted to play this one. It hasn't aged well. It's still sort of fun if you like on-rail shooters. I'm not saying that it's crappy, but if you're going to pay 80 bucks just for this, I'd say save your money. But as part of this collection, it's definitely worth checking out. Star Fox 2, now this one hasn't been released yet. This is one of the main reasons why I'm interested in picking up this console. It was near release and then Nintendo decided to scrap it because they were afraid it would screw up Star Fox 64 sales and what they were doing with that. I'm kind of interested in picking it up. Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. The Street Fighter 2 ports to the Super Nintendo aren't as strong as the arcades, and there's plenty of places to pick up the arcade game. Still, people are going to be nostalgic for the Super Nintendo port, and the ports aren't bad, so, still worthy being there. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, a game that's super hard. I don't know if modern day audiences are ready for the difficulty of this game, but worth it. Super Mario Kart, if you can get past some of the odd controls for an old SNES game, Super Mario Kart is probably one of the best kart racers available for that system. Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. If you're new to RPGs and want to get in, definitely worth picking up Super Mario World. A really great classic Super Nintendo game. Came with the console, so most everybody has it. Super Metroid, again, a classic. I've reviewed that one before. Definitely worth getting. Super Punch-Out, if they can fix the lag issues, Super Punch-Out is also a really fun little arcade boxing game. And then Yoshi's Island, another game that hasn't been released on the virtual console, sort of. Granted, the GBA port has appeared in a few places. However, the GBA port, although a solid Game Boy Advance port, does not have the audio as good at graphics as the Super Nintendo, because the Super Nintendo supported the VX chip to give it a little bit of an extra pop. So Yoshi's Island would be better to pick it up here on the Classic Edition than on the Virtual Console, so I'm glad to see the Super Nintendo version is finally being re-released by Nintendo. So all of these are good, and Nintendo has also said they will support a longer cord, and it will have 2 controllers, and looking at it, I think I understand why. Nintendo, I think, decided to be kind of clever with the NES Classic controllers and have it support the original Nintendo Wii remotes. So those of us who own Virtual Console games could use that controller, which was a neat idea. Unfortunately, the cord length from what I saw was that of an old classic controller for the Wii. Not good enough for a standalone console. Here it looks like, just judging from the looks, they're going to have mini ports for the Super Nintendo controllers. I don't know if they'll be compatible with original SNES systems because the system looks too small for it, but it looks like they're going to have their own ports that's going to be unique for the system. So, you know, screw selling them as standalone. They're just going to give us 2 controllers like the good old days. So that's good. It's going to have an HDMI output, and it's going to put these in high definition. Hopefully better emulation than the Virtual Console. So this looks all good. So what am I concerned about? Well, Nintendo completely screwed up the NES Classic Edition. Let's not beat around the bush. They screwed the pooch. They knew it was going to be high in demand. They knew they had last year's Christmas items and decided to do nothing because all this was to them was the stopgap. And I got a message to Nintendo. And this isn't for Nintendo of America, because Reggie and his team do a good job. This isn't for their game developers. This is for you suits in Kyoto. Your main problem why Nintendo keeps on botching their consoles time and time again is you don't understand your consumers at all. Not only that, but I think you're too busy protecting your freaking IP to understand how your consumers use your IP. And that keeps on getting in your way time and time again. Your crappy DRM on the Wii U that hurt the system. The fact that social media, which a lot of game developers nowadays use to help promote their games and to have gamers share their enjoyment of the games and talk about their games, you guys try to silence because I think you guys in your head think that social media is just a freaking fad. And because of that, you had no clue how much demand that NES Mini was. And when you decided not to produce enough last year, rather than give your people who were looking for it, and it's not the same market as the Switch or your core consoles, although the fact that you're throwing in Star Fox 2 means you're going to get more of a core audience, so be prepared. But instead of people who are looking for a nostalgic itch or to give it to a person who they used to play games, a sibling or something who may not be a gamer now but might have nostalgic interest as a Christmas present, instead of getting that NES Classic out to those people, what happened is they landed in the hands of scalpers. Most of the people who paid $60 for the NES Classic probably weren't interested in playing it for the games. They were interested on reselling it on eBay, and before people give these people crap, it's called supply and demand. They knew Nintendo was not going to meet the demand for it, or with the supply, so therefore increase prices. People will only pay what the market can bear, and with what Nintendo released, the market price for it wasn't $60, it was $300 to $400, which is bullcrap, and this falls all on Nintendo. Nintendo, make sure you have enough released, okay? Because this will be a hot ticket item if you market it as such. If you market this and then you decide not to produce enough and I see the same crap, oh, is it going to fall? Because one of the problems I have with you is, like I said, not listening to consumers. So you'll have that problem, and I'm pretty sure by Christmas you'll probably try to patch in some sort of share feature with the Switch. If not, people will start to demand it by then, and I can't wait to see the hellstorm that comes out of it. If you haven't listened to the consumers, if you haven't figured out the consumers and social media, I can't wait to see people hit that share button on the Nintendo Switch and then all of a sudden get their inboxes filled with Content ID and copyright complaints from you, Nintendo. I just can't wait for that, because I know it's coming. Figure out your consumers, you can still protect your IP, and you can still serve your consumers, but you're going to have to listen for a moment, because the Nintendo Switch is taking off just fine, but once that bump gets hit that people try to share this stuff on social media, and it's already was a problem with Zelda, Mario Odyssey, it will pop up again. But once people start sharing that on social media and Nintendo comes out and tells them you can't, well, guess what? That'll just drive them back to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. You've got to figure this out. You've got to figure out how much of these to produce, because if you screw up, it's really going to look bad for you, Nintendo. Now that I got that rant out of the way, this is Tommy the Game Master signing out. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below.